If we were in school, we would have done this lab. Is it living or non-living? How can you tell? But instead of that, I made a Google Doc and I gave you different organisms and videos, and then I asked you to tell me what characteristic of life is represented in the video. So we did a kind of like a lab virtual. All right. What does an organism need to survive? This is important. What do they need to survive? What do you think every organism needs to survive? So here you have this little house. This little house is going to help you remember what they need. So all of these are different organisms and they all need similar things to help them survive. They all look different. That's a multicellular bird. That's a unicellular amoeba. This is a multicellular fungi, a mushroom, multicellular plant. This is a unicellular organism, probably bacteria. Okay, so what do they need? All organisms need water. This is essential for life. Every single organism needs water. Notice how I put the W is red because we're going to spell another word. So plants need water to make their food. They can't survive without it. It is also a solvent. You know what that means from the chemistry unit? It means that things will dissolve in water. And we need this for chemical reactions. So all of your unicellular organisms, cells are made of cytoplasm, which is mostly water. So that's where your chemical reactions take place. If anything has to happen in order to give us energy, we need water. We need living space for some of these organisms, and that's water. So protists, paramecium amoeba, they can't live unless they live in water. And your fish use water as living space as well. Your turtles use water for living space. So water is used by all organisms in different ways. Air. So far we have W-A. Air. Air is a mixture of gases and particles. Most of our air is nitrogen. We have about 21% oxygen and we have some CO2. So all organisms use different parts of the air. Like humans can't use nitrogen and CO2, but we use the oxygen. We change the nitrogen and CO2 into different things, but we can't use it when it's in the air. All right, so our air. Most organisms need oxygen to change their food into energy. This is called cellular respiration. So if you are an organism that undergoes cellular respiration, you cannot survive without oxygen. Now, plants do not need oxygen first. First, they need carbon dioxide, then they use oxygen. So a lot of people don't believe that plants need oxygen to survive, but they do. The thing is, they don't take it from the air, they actually make their own. So they're luckier than us because they make everything they need. We have to actually look for the stuff we need. All right, people are organisms that need oxygen. Plants use carbon dioxide to change the energy into food in a process called photosynthesis. Then, once they have their food, then they need the oxygen to break down that food. All right, what's next? So we have W, we have A. This is photosynthesis. It's an example. So now they release the oxygen, but then they take it back in to make energy. Different organisms have different requirements. Look at this. The oxygen requirements for certain fish. Worms don't need that much oxygen, but striped bass need a lot more. So if the oxygen levels decrease, these organisms on the top are going to die. These are hardier, anchovies and spots and worms. They don't need as much oxygen to survive. What else do we have? Space. So we have W, A, and now we have S. Space. All organisms need living space in order to survive. Sometimes the living space is air. Sometimes the living space is water. Sometimes the living space is land. So the living space could be different for all different organisms. Why do they need living space? To find their food, to get their air, to find their water, to be a safe place for them to reproduce. So they need a living space, otherwise they're not going to survive. All organisms need a living space. So plants need a living space. So a lot of times, if the weeds overgrow, they're going to kill out the plants. They killed and they blocked the living space for the plants. All organisms need space. Okay, so far we have W for water, A for air, and S for space. What else do organisms need? Let's see. They need T. T for temperature. They need proper temperature. So all organisms need proper temperature in order for them to survive. If you're a warm-blooded organism, you keep your internal body conditions warm. So your body itself keeps it warm. Your body temperature will regulate itself by homeostasis. You have constant body temperature like mammals and birds. If you're cold-blooded, you're going to move. You're going to move to the warmth, like our snake. Our snake will look for the warm places. When the temperature changes, they have to move. Fish are also cold-blooded. Amphibians, reptiles. Mammals and birds are warm-blooded, so they keep their body temperature constant on their own. So polar bears can't live in the same place that parrots live. Why not? The temperature is different. They both can't survive in that same temperature. Even though the birds are warm-blooded, they can only regulate their temperatures to a certain degree. Mammals, like the polar bear, they can't live in Florida because they're too hot. They won't be able to regulate their body temperature either. So there's only like a small little range that they can regulate. All right, we got E left. The last one, they all need energy. We talked about this in characteristics of life also, and it's also a need. Organisms have to be able to obtain energy, whether they obtain it from the sun, they're autotrophs, because they can make their own food like plants, or if they take it from other organisms, they're heterotrophs. They eat other organisms. So heterotrophs make their own food. They have to gather it. They have to get it from other organisms. Here we have our review. Here are the words: water. Organisms need water. All organisms need air. All organisms need temperature. They need space and they need energy. But I think if we juggle these, water, air, space, temperature, energy, we spell the word waste. So that helps us remember that all organisms can't waste things. They need them. They need water. They need air. They need space. They need temperature. They need energy. And this will help you. If you want to, it'll be a good idea to write this down. Characteristics of life, red car, and waste. All these things are needed for an organism. Okay. Waste is the needs of organisms. Living organisms must carry out the life processes. That's the next one. Okay. Where do we go? Oh my God, tell me it didn't record.